Do we always come back to this in every single episode?
Oh yeah, it's on the bingo card.
What are you trying to do? What are you trying to build? And what experience do you want the visitant to have? There's a huge debate between hard and soft magic systems. One of the things you'll notice about any hard magic system is there aren't a lot of rules.
If you know the magic system well enough, you're like, that's theoretically possible. He pulls down a flipping Star Destroyer. Like, you should not be able to do that. It's just really cool.
And anytime a rule is discoverable, there is somebody who is going to be incredibly invested in exploiting it.
At the end of the day, a hard system needs a simple point of genesis that people can work from.
You can have a hard religion or a soft religion. You can have a hard military system or a soft military system. You can create wonder in both of those ways.
Hello and welcome to the WorldCraft Club, a show devoted to writers, storytellers, and other world builders who want to create immersive settings that will draw their audience back time and time again. I'm James. I'm joined by Seth and producer Dave down here in Seth's dungeon deep in Penn's Woods. And today we're going to talk a little bit about mechanics and rules. This was a submission from one of our Discord members, Stoic Simeon, who wanted to talk a little bit about kind of rules, systems, and mechanics, right? Like if you're designing a magic system, how do you build one that has significantly well-adopted and focused rules such that you don't create a Deus Ex Machina by mistake, right? Our pantsers out there may have done this, run yourself into a cul-de-sac, gone like, oh, I really want the magic to do this, but it's against the rules. Maybe I'll just say this person can do it because they're the chosen one. And then you get on the other side of it, you have the person who just never writes the freaking book because they're too busy writing rules, systems, and mechanics. How do we find that sort of happy medium where we're making just enough? Seth, you write books. What do you think?
Oh man, just lobbing that one at me.
Yeah, just your thoughts, Seth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think that it's hard.
Yeah.
And I think that it's okay to start there.
Yeah.
And just say, hey, there are things that are really tough.
Yeah.
And this is one of them. There's a huge debate between hard and soft magic systems.
Yeah.
What's better? Most writers, whether they want to write hard magic systems or soft magic systems, write soft magic systems because it's so incredibly difficult to do anything else. Now, there are some examples of hard magic systems. Sanderson does a great job in building
he's
hard...
the first person I think about with this. Yeah.
He builds great hard magic systems. But one of the things you'll notice about any hard magic system is that there aren't a lot of rules.
Yeah.
In fact, simplicity seems to be the key.
Keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
Right?
If you want to write a soft magic system, you can include anything you want because it's magic. Yeah. And you can say these guys can do it and those guys can't because it's magic. You can say she is allowed to do this and she is not because it's magic.
Yeah.
But with a hard magic system, you start to tread into different territory. All of a sudden, when something's a hard magic system, it starts to resemble science a lot more. And just as the rules of physics are what the world operates on, and we can discover what those rules are in the same exact way, in a hard magic system, those rules are discoverable. And anytime a rule is discoverable, there is somebody who is going to be incredibly invested in exploiting it.
Yeah.
And so that's what you set yourself up for if you're walking into a hard magic system.
Yeah.
So I would say, as far as how do you do it? Well, make sure you're keeping it simple. And also understand that anything you create is going to be exploited to the nth degree.
Yeah, it's like modding video games.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? It's like I'm playing this game Stellaris right now. I don't know if I've told you. But like there is there's an extent to which, like, when you get to the upper echelons of playing that game, it becomes more about exploiting things that are definitely not working as intended eventually, right? Like, there are loads of that. And they have a really, really good dev team that's always patching that stuff up. And they've made a very good game. There's always exploits. And, like, that's how people operate, though. It occurred to me, I was thinking about this. Hard and soft magics have very different kinds of excitement that are associated with them. So, like, I guess the end of, like, the Mistborn books as I was reading them, or at least I guessed the directionally what they were going to do, and that gave me such a thrill. And part of the reason was all of the breadcrumbs were laid in the process of it. Like, even like a big reveal in I think it was the third book. Like, I knew it was coming. At least, as I say, directionally. I didn't know all the details, but, like, directionally. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back too hard here. But, like, it was... There were things...
Just a little pat.
Yeah, just a gentle, appropriate patting of my back. It's like this. When I figure out how that magic system works, or if I understand it well enough, when I see a character do something where they very cleverly utilize the system. So there's a character in it named Kelsier. This is not a giveaway. At one point in the books, he demonstrates an extreme competence with pushing and pulling allomancy, basically drawing metal towards yourself and pushing it away.
Right.
And he demonstrates a proficiency with this that if you know the magic system well enough, you're like, that's theoretically possible. And you're like, oh, dang, that's cool.
Right.
Like, and that's a very different feeling from the sense of wonder you have when they're wandering up the pass, trying to avoid going into the mines of Moria in Lord of the Rings, and you've got Saruman like yodeling into the breeze, and like, you know, like the mountains falling apart. And he's going, and everyone's like, he's yodeling, and like the mountains falling apart. Like, but that's a very different type of wonder, or like, you know, the power of Galadriel, or, you know, the battle with the Balrog. That is a very different type of feeling, and both are pretty good. You know what I mean? Like, I would mainline any of those if I could do it, but like,
they serve different purposes.
Exactly.
Do we always come back to this in every single episode?
Oh yeah, it's on the bingo card. It's the free spot in the middle.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
The reason you have magic should determine whether you have a hard system or a soft system. There's no other way to decide, right? The purpose of the magic and the type of cool that you want in your story. Because the only reason people include magic in their stories is because they need to add some cool, or they want to add some cool. Yeah. Right? Because magic is cool. Yeah. It's fun. It's exciting. It's interesting. It creates wonder. But you're right. You can create wonder in both of those ways. Maybe it's not wonder in both ways, actually. Maybe it's wonder and awe. Yeah. Because you can create wonder in a setting where you don't know and you're not going to explain what is happening.
Yeah, 100%.
But then you can create awe when somebody does something that uses the rules and is just a creative and inspired way of doing it. Yeah. So that's a really fascinating sort of distinction. One creates wonder, one creates awe.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And I think anybody that's watching or listening right now, you can remember books that made you feel that way. Yes. And it's an interesting thing, because like this is where like Brandon Sanderson's heart, like, to be completely honest, like I am a little ambivalent about the Mistborn series, like in part because the magic is great. The politics in it are just banana pants crazy. Yeah. And it's just like, it's clear that just wasn't his interest. Right. And that's absolutely fine.
And that's cool.
That's not what I remember about the books. You know what I mean? But there were times where I read it and I was like, huh? Like, you know what I mean? Like, why does he get to rule things? You know, it's like, why does it work? That's okay. That's a weird way for courts to work, you know, kind of thing. Right. But like, and that's like, you know, the inner Reddit user in me just on there, you know, 4,000 words on why Mistborn was crap. It's not. But like, you know, it's that kind of thing. Right. And like, but that was, again, his interest, his passion, was creating those sorts of like, oh, well, what if this happened? You can even see it as you read through the books. There are concepts that he clearly added as time went on, and you're kind of like, oh, it makes sense that they could do that. But part of the reason that he was able to make these reasonable, modest additions, like the ability to sort of burn a metal more brightly for a long period of time, and then he sort of went, oh, what would that do to a person? You know what I mean? And he got there's kind of like a bit of an involvement with that. That's fascinating. And a lot of that is because he kept it easy to begin with. So it's kind of like, I think like essentially if you're going to do a hard system, and to be completely honest, like we're talking about Magic because Magic is very easy to hand. You could say this about politics. You can have a hard political system with a lot of intrigue and rules and organization. You can have a soft political system where it just sort of serves the purpose, and you know there's a king and the king does this, this, and that, and he has a court and there's some intrigue. You know, or you can have very, very dense sort of procedural stuff going on. And at the end of the day, a hard system needs a simple point of genesis that people can work from, and they can go, okay, all else fails, matter is conserved, right? Like that's like, I have the rule. And then from there, you can kind of go, well, if matter is conserved, when that person turns into a crow, they actually need to turn into a flock of crows, you know, kind of thing. And then it's like, oh, that's actually kind of interesting. How would somebody control that many crows? And then you're kind of like, well, maybe they have a subdivided consciousness. And what if one of them wants to turn back into a person, the other one doesn't? Is it like an arm just appears? You know, it's like, the point is, very, very simple concept gets really fun when you start to extrapolate it, and you get that sort of, oh my gosh, she turned into a flock of crows, and then like just her head was back here and she could see what was going on in the courtyard during this, and it makes total sense. That adds up. I see how that fits together, and that's exciting, and that's a simple hard system that works to the benefit of the audience. But it all comes back to the same thing. What are you trying to do? Right?
What are you trying to do? What are you trying to build? And what experience do you want the visitant to have?
What purpose does your political system serve? What purpose does your magic system serve? What purpose does that culture
any
serve?
System, and that's the other thing, is that any system can be the same. You can have a hard religion or a soft religion. You can have a hard military system or a soft military system, in that you can say, oh, these nations went to war. Or you can get into the nitty-gritty of logistics.
And how their light cavalry operates and how technology made them different.
And each is going to create a different book. Now, one thing that I think is important, because we have a lot of TTRPG players in our audience. And we love TTRPGs. The hardest thing about TTRPGs, period, is balance. And the problem is that the more balanced something becomes, this is a universal rule for any game, the more balanced something becomes, the less fun it is. Because the more balanced something becomes, the more you reduce agency. You reduce the ability for people to
excel,
to even explore, right? Because when you develop something that is highly balanced, it becomes apparent what is optimal. And either
you get your min-maxers then, who are just, they're trying to
either there's one optimal thing that everybody plays, and that's balanced, or there's nothing that is better than anything else, at which point success is random, right? Because if you have 10 options and every option is exactly the same in terms of power level, then there's nothing interesting about that, because it's at the end of the day random.
I have so many game design related thoughts that are just going to disappear into the stratosphere, but I'm just going to drop one of them here. What if each player just had their own journey, right? Like, here's the issue that you have with a lot of this is that, like, and I'm going to hearken again to Stellaris. Stellaris is an unbalanced game in the way that it's set up. In a single player game, you are put in a system, and that system could have any number of challenges with it. You could encounter, like a whole bunch of ancient mining drones right next to you, and they could ruin your day. And you might have to learn how to tame them and technologicalize them. And then you turn up with, mining drone cruisers and things like that. You have to adapt to the scenario. What if the rogue just had a different advancement queue than the mage? and they just had different sorts of challenges they were all supposed to face. And then you kind of you're not so worried about who does the most damage.
Right.
You're kind of worried about who can solve their story the
So
most.
so this leads to a different.
This is completely
kind of-
this is off topic.
No,
I'm
it's
sorry. I
not.
didn't mean to drag
It's
us
not.
there. You don't think so?
I don't think so. I think this is actually on topic because let's say you have a bunch of people with different advancement.
Yeah.
That means that they're going to have different power levels at different stages. Are you writing a primary protagonist story or a multiple protagonist story?
Yeah.
If you're writing a primary protagonist story, then only one of those paths matters.
Yeah.
The path of the individual who you're following. If you're writing a multiple protagonist story, then this is a great idea, right?
Well,
Developing different systems for everybody to use is fantastic. The challenge comes in when you make the rules hard and fast. Because if you make rules hard and fast, you can't say, no, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
It reminds me of playing D20, I think it was D20 Star Wars,
Gotcha.
and having to ban force throw
Yeah.
because people were
Spamming
hurling boulders with enough force mathematically to take ships out of the sky. And so it was like, oh, here's a thing that makes sense when you just look at it at face value. But then
Yeah.
as soon as you start to dig into it, because we're saying the rules are hard and fast, well, this is how physics works. So guess what?
So my counterpoint is the Force Unleashed, because there is a scene in the Force Unleashed. So the Force is an incredibly malleable and soft system, and one of the things is that Star Wars is complicated because it has gone through multiple iterations.
Right.
As a
With
book,
different
as
visionaries.
as a book series with the extended universe, it gets much harder.
Yes.
They actually want to apply limits, and they want
Yes.
to draw circles around things. Say, you can do this, you can't do that. When it comes to the movies, it's much softer because they
Right.
want the flexibility and like intrigue of characters kind of doing mystical, weird
and
things.
the
with
comics
Force.
are entirely focused on what looks cool.
And then, yeah, and the Force Unleashed, they had a tagline for that. So this is a really key example of people figuring out what they wanted to do and then making it happen. Their entire thing, and I'm gonna censor it a little bit, but it was kicking butt with the Force.
Right.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah.
He pulls down a flipping Star Destroyer. Like, you should not be able to do that, but there
Size
is just
doesn't
something.
matter.
There is just something epic about a dude just
Yep.
standing there, pulling the thing down. You've got to guide it down. It's part of the game, and you're trying to pull it into the right sort of position to crash it, and it's just really cool. You know what I mean? And it's like,
It is.
damn the consequences, full awesome ahead. You know,
That's
like,
right.
and that just kind of, that's another thing about like sort of a soft system where you can kind of just go, no, we're gonna put a donk on it. Like, we're just gonna make it awesome, and that's it. And like, whereas with a hard system, you are deliberately constrained, and you are exploring in some ways, like
Right.
more like cleverness. Like a hard system is like that balanced system in a game. And one of the things that I kind of hear in a way that you're saying, you know, we banned force rock throwing. I'm like, but the players figured that out, and they
Yes.
probably sat down and did the math.
Oh, they
and
did.
thought,
We did.
dang, we're
Yes.
pretty clever for figuring that out. That's
Yes.
pretty cool. Like, you've got to let him throw a few boulders before you nerf that.
And because we
Like,
had a good GM,
Yeah.
that's exactly what happened.
yeah,
And then he said, hey, let's talk about this
yeah,
and what it's going to do to the game.
it's
When every single one of you is just carrying a bunch of ball bearings around.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you just blow somebody up.
Yes.
And that will definitely go faster than a blaster bolt, because why do they use blasters instead of just like a handgun? Like,
Right.
it's like, just bring a Colt 45 and dominate the Star Wars universe. It's like, I see you have highly advanced magnetized plasma. I bring you chemicals. Boom. Like,
Yep.
it's just like, that's it. They're going down.
Yeah.
I think somebody had it before where they were like, I'm pretty sure this would defeat a Jedi. And what it was a gun with 3 barrels, such that you could only deflect 2 of the bolts at any given point. So it's like, I'm pretty sure this would just kill Jedi outright, right? Like, and I was like, that's a good point. You know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
like, but it's that kind of thing. It's just sort of, it's difficult to lay that out. And I think people get,
Yeah.
they get scared I think of being inconsistent, introducing that Deus Ex Machina, that pocket full of pebbles where they can just shoot things and blow them up with their hands. Again, that's a good DM that stops and goes like, hold on, where's this going to go? Is the game going to keep being fun? Because you got to remember, the goal of the game is to be fun.
That's right.
Like, it's not a role playing series.
So
yeah,
I think that's actually a really good, like, taking that example and sort of extrapolating it into writing.
Yeah.
If
you're
writing a magic system and you're concerned about sort of writing yourself into a corner, my suggestion is focus on a softer system with more fun.
Yeah.
Now, if you are really interested in writing a hard system, then write a hard system. Just understand that it's going to take a lot more work through your manuscript to make sure that it's consistent, that there aren't big holes. You're probably going to need readers specifically for checking out the magic system. Like, you're going to need to give it to people. You're going to
want someone to follow up
and say, hey, can you check my math on this magic system? And can you think of any ways that the characters could have done something different? Right? It's a different writing experience.
Yeah. I mean, I would also say join the server if you want that kind of feedback. Like, this actually happened today. Somebody was like, hey, I've got this idea for a thing, and the server exploded for a long time with tons of differing opinions on it, and it was just a really useful creative process. But sorry, carry on.
No,
yeah,
and
I think that's great.
And I think that with a hard magic system, you're going to have to involve other people. One of the real pitfalls of building technical systems is when people think that they can do it by themselves. And this is true whether it's code, this is true whether it's magic, this is true, whether it's creative or not. Anything technical needs or is benefited from multiple people's points of view or multiple people looking at it.
Yeah.
And so I think that if you're going to build a hard magic system, and there's nothing wrong with building hard magic systems, I think it's really important to understand that you're setting yourself up for a different sort of creative process. And also, you are not going to be able to achieve the same levels of just awesome.
Yeah. Well, I would not even say that it's the same levels. It's just a different vibe. Right, like it is a different kind. I liked your breakdown before, and I think you had Awe, which is sort of the example from Brandon Sanderson, which is Kelsier using the push and pull magic abilities and kind of the allomantic abilities, and you kind of going, oh, that makes a lot of sense. I see how that adds up.
Right.
I get where he's. Oh, that's so clever. Like that is it's a good feeling.
It is.
But then the other kind of good feeling is like, I don't understand how this works, but flipping heck, that was cool. It was like the yanking the Star Destroyer down kind of vibe.
Right.
Interestingly enough, that's an example from a video game as well, which usually has to do more of the hard and fast rules in order for things to feel fair. They had a cinematic moment in which you could do it.
Yes.
Actually get to pull the thing down. It is rad.
So I like the term cinematic. Yeah. And understanding in your story or in your setting how cinematic it is also really important.
Yeah. I think both have this impact of wow moments. And I think maybe a good question to ask is like, what kind of wow are you looking for?
That's
you know
a great
what
question.
I mean? Like where is the moment that you're seeing? And a lot of it as well, like effectively the crux of Brandon Sanderson's novel is that at least the first of the Mistborn trilogy is that there's somebody who basically figured out a cheat code or exploit to like the system is the whole point behind it in some ways. Like there's a guy who figured out how to cheat the system, and like if you're eagle-eyed you figure it out, as I did. But like that was the whole thing about it. Yeah, I know, right, Pat? But it's that kind of thing. It's like where. And then that is rewarding for a reader to see that. But effectively, that was him exploiting a video game.
I don't know how much time we have left, but I want to talk about one thing that I think is very important. And we touch on it occasionally, but I would like to state it explicitly. Understand whether you are building for yourself or you are building for other people. If you are building for yourself, do what you want.
Mhm.
Build what you want. Build a hard magic system, build a soft magic
Ship
system.
in a bottle. Do what you like.
Right. Doesn't matter. If you are building for other people, it's so important to understand the effects of what you create on your visitant.
Yeah.
Because if you're building for other people, then how you feel about it or what you enjoy building is subordinate to their experience.
Yeah.
Now, everybody, I think, creates for a mixture of reasons.
Oh, yeah.
We don't create just because we want somebody else to give us something, right? That's not why we do it.
People don't go to grocery stores for one reason. You know what I mean? It's like
Right.
you're going there, so you're not just going, I'm just here to pick up eggs. And it's like, eggs, only eggs. It's like, no, if you need milk, you're going to be like, oh, I'll get some milk too. You know, it's like you never do anything for one reason. It's okay to diversify, or at least acknowledge that you are.
Yes. And making sure that you understand that going into your creative process. So one of the things I like to do before I start writing a chapter or before I start working is I like to take a moment, just literally a second, and think about what I'm making. Think about what I'm trying to achieve.
Yeah.
Right? Because that helps me to orient when I'm creating so that I'm aligning what I'm creating with my purpose.
Yeah.
Right? And so if your purpose in writing a novel is to have written a novel, then write what you want.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't matter. If
Box
your purpose,
checked.
Exactly. If your purpose in writing the novel is to sell the novel, you probably should understand what experience you're giving your visitant.
Yeah.
Because that's going to determine whether people buy it or not.
Whether it's that awe or that wonder, you know, what brand of wow are you trying to make?
What are you trying to achieve?
Yeah.
We come back to purpose a lot.
We do. And like it is on the bingo card. And I think that there's a lot of different there's a lot of different tools you can use and tips you can use in that. But I think the core message at the end of the day with a lot of what we do is, do you know what you're trying to do? Like, and how are you going to make it happen? You know, and the how you're going to make it happen is where a lot of what we're kind of talking about here with the magic systems. And to be completely honest, we're at the part of the podcast now where I'd sort of nailed you down to practicals, but I think we've kind of done that through the course
I do have one practical that we've already talked about, but I'd like to highlight.
Yes, please.
Involve other people in your process.
Yes.
Get involved in the Discord server if you don't already have a creator community.
Link in the notes.
Yeah. So get involved with other people, engage with them, and talk to them about what you're doing. And I know it can be intimidating to do because we have this sort of dual fear of they're going to think this is stupid or they're going to think it's not interesting.
Yeah.
So what I would recommend as a practical tip for that is bite-size your engagement. So instead of saying, I've got this magic system that's 37 pages long and there's an appendix, I need people to go through it and tell me if it's accurate.
Yeah.
Instead, pick one piece of it, one facet of it, and say, I have this rule in my magic system. Can anybody think about ways to exploit it?
Well, another way I'd kind of throw in there is like short story. You know what I mean? Like put a couple of thousand words down and share it with somebody. Like that way you're practicing the skills of writing.
Yes.
And
which is very important.
Yeah, and finding out if something will story is a good test internally.
It is.
And it's also much more interesting to read. So you could take like a sort of an addendum to the suggestion that you have there, and I think it's a solid one, is just test the idea. But write a short story that involves that particular rule or setting.
Right.
Preferably not one that's just like a wise teacher delivering explicit exposition on the rule.
Yeah, don't do that.
Just write something where the rule is involved. Give it like, a couple of thousand words and then run it by people. And it's interesting to read. And then they can go, oh, wait a minute. Have you thought about this? And you can go, that is a great idea for a villain, because every exploit's a great villain. Like that's just like where it is. Anybody who figures something out, that's an awesome villain you've got there. And so like you've got some of that worked out. And honestly, Seth, like I think that's really solid. And I think we could call it quits about there. And so I guess we'll turn the question to you now. What is your favorite system that you've seen used. So an example could be a political system. If you're a big fan of Star Wars, you could talk about the way the Senate works. I know a lot of people are a big fan of that. You could talk about a magic system you like, such as Brandon Sanderson's or Tolkien's, and break that down. So go ahead. What did we miss? What's something cool in a setting that you think works really, really well, and why do you think it works? Give us a point in the comments. So that'll about do it for this episode of the WorldCraft Club. I'm James. Got Seth here with me, producer Dave, and special thanks to editor AJ. And we've just really enjoyed having you here. Go ahead and jump onto our Discord if you ever want to have influence on what we make and the questions we ask. You'll note that the last 2 episodes we've had been suggestions from the Discord. It's no coincidence. I need ideas. I'm not very good at ideas. Like, just give me stuff, please. So yeah, we check in with the server, and they often come back with cool stuff for us to do, and then we do them. So go ahead and jump on. It'll be in the links provided below in the notes. This has been another episode of the WorldCraft Club. Thank you so much for listening.